Good afternoon. 6:34, we're going to call the meeting to order. I'm Alton Davis, I'm the chairman. You've got Matt Coram, the vice chairman. Treasurer Carl Coker's not here, he's absent. Tom Hallquist is our district attorney, not attorney, but accountant, close, start with A. Accountant, and Tom will present some of the information that Carl normally would. Let's see. Janet Wintudge, Carol Weisenberger.
Yep.
Y'all left the first names off just to test me, didn't you?
We did.
Larry Pence, Tom Leahy on the end, and Jerry Scally. Okay, and then this is our new district attorney, Hans Wall. He's with Cobb and Gonzalez. We selected him on our special meeting on the 11th of January. Wayne Flowers gave us notice back in November, I believe it was, that he only wanted to work till the end of January, and then he would be done. So we do have a quorum. We're going to have 5 to have a quorum, so we've got a quorum. And the only one missing is Carl. We do have, and we'll need to check this for sure. I'm interested in it, and I don't know the answer to it. But there's still one seat, but it's been vacant for a long, long time. Long enough that it has to be filled in a normal election cycle, which is up in the November time frame. So that's one thing that people need to know. Secondly is some of the seats that are filled by pretty much all of us here could be up for election depending on the seat number. They vary by seat numbers and could be up for election in that same October-November time frame. So, yes.
Go ahead. I need to say something.
Okay, so if, people want to know about how to make change, well, that's how you make change. It's the political process, and that's how it works.
I forgot to mention this to you earlier. I come from a background that says if we are recording a meeting, we need to tell everybody we're recording the meeting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm sorry I forgot to say that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've started meetings, so I guess technically we're recording.
Yep.
Tom has had some experience with recorders and stuff like that. We had a recorder before, and I don't know what happened, but there were some goofy things going on with it. And I'll just leave it at that. Wayne, our lawyer, previous lawyer, suggested that you better be recording some way or another. So we're back into recording. Now, to my knowledge, and this is really a question that Carol, you may answer, or Hans, you can jump in anytime too. We don't publish that on anywhere. It's not on our website.
At this point,
Never has been that I know of. I've looked back on many minutes of meetings and all, and I hadn't found anything.
At this point, we have never published it.
Yeah.
But in the near future, we may decide to live stream it, and we could use that on our website. So
we haven't
that's
got
to be decided.
Okay, we might get to that point, but we might not get to that point.
But it's important to know we're recording, and whether we put it on a website or whether we don't, it still doesn't matter. We're recording.
Yeah, and it's a public meeting, so people are free to have information. One of the things that Tom has and is working on is more or less Donnie mentioned it at one of our meetings about talk to text or something like that, or where you can try to translate this stuff where it makes it a whole lot easier.
There's apps.
There's systems
apps
that do that for us.
Where it makes it a whole lot easier on the generating minutes of meetings and all that sort of thing. But again, I don't know. I can see advantages and disadvantages both ways with live stream and that sort of thing. We have quite a few visitors with us tonight. Not visitors, but lake lot owners, representatives, that sort of thing. So I'm glad to have you here. That is, to me, the best way to have communication because you're face to face. you know, you're looking at, the people involved and, you know, Miss Ann, as an example, she gives me advice. Tom shared the same advice you gave me, that I need to stay calm, you know. So you don't see that if you're looking at, well, you might see it if you're looking at live stream. And so, having said that, I'm trying to take that into account too. And you're sitting right there in front of me, so when I look at you, I'll try to remember that. And then you got some support from Tom. So I may get excited at times, but I care about what's going on. If I didn't care, then, you know, I wouldn't be here. So now I'm all messed up. So we went through introduction of people. Now we're down to the Pledge of Allegiance. There it is. Right there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, administrative announcements. This is something that ever since I've been on the vice chairman or chairman role when we run in the meeting, we follow these rules and they're written out. They're already, I mean, it's no different, quite frankly. I looked on my bulletin board back here. My granddaughter had a baby shower. And while I was here helping them decorate and all, I looked at the bulletin board there. There's two of the same thing back in 2008 and 9. So this is not new stuff about how the meeting is supposed to be run. So the rules are, if you wish to speak or ask a question, you fill out the form on the reception table in the back. You return it to the table or give it to the secretary or chairman. We don't have a secretary. We'll talk about that tonight. So just bring it up here and put it up on the table. The chair will address questions or comments after the agenda is complete, normally in the new business section, time permitting. Meetings normally last approximately 2 hours. Wait until the chair recognizes you before you talk. Limit your comment or question to 3 minutes unless the chair specifically extends your time. Where 2 or more represent or share common interest, only one will be designated to speak for a total of 5 minutes. For a good cause, the chairman may extend the time limit. Speakers are not allowed to assign his or her time or any part of their time to another speaker. A member of the public speaking on any matter shall confine him or herself to the question or matter before the board, shall not use unbecoming, abusive, unparliamentary language, and shall avoid commenting on personalities or character of any board member, former board trustees, other officials, staff, or the public. The board reserves the right to have the Clay County Sheriff's Department remove an individual or individuals who fail to meet this request. Address your question and comments only to the chairman, not to a specific trustee or individual in the meeting. Trustees can only respond to an individual if the chairman requests. A person who decides to appeal any decision made by the board with respect to any matter considered at the board is advised that this same person will need a record of the proceedings, and that accordingly the person may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, including the testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. The district attorney, district accountant, engineering advisory group may be requested by the chairman to speak at any time for advice, suggestions, or information. Questions can be submitted in advance by email to the district secretary, district.secretary@lams.com. And then to the trustees, all trustees, including board officers, must vote. A trustee with a conflict of interest regarding business before the board must declare that conflict with the chair before the vote. The district attorney may be consulted on this issue. If a trustee needs to leave early, the trustee needs to advise the chairman. An important issue may need to be moved up for discussion earlier for approval and vote. Okay? So there's the rules and regulations. I don't know if you got a copy. Okay. All right, we are supposed to approve the minutes of the prior meetings, that includes September the 13th. A motion and approval of all the minutes. Carolyn, you're the one that prepared those, correct?
Carl prepared the one from
You
September
did, the
13th.
September 13th?
And that one's been taken care of, and tonight, you had asked for 2 corrections or additions on the December 16th, and I'd sent those to you as well as the January 3rd, and I received no comments back, so I'm assuming that they're approved by everyone.
They're well written.
Okay, so if you want to pass this around to him, he doesn't need to sign them right this instant, but they're laid out so you can sign them.
Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda says treasurer request. Even though Carl's not here, the treasurer request for the board to eliminate requirement to sign minutes. Reason, motion, and approval. And he's researched that with somebody, I don't know who, but
It's up to you if you do not want to sign them, but they're laid out so that there's a space for you.
if they're
to
laid
sign.
out, so there should be,
I think
I'll go ahead and do it because we haven't really addressed
Yeah.
this next statement yet, so that precedes
Right.
that, so I'll go ahead and sign it. All right. So somebody needs to make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Jerry,
Second.
second, Jen. Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried, unanimous. Okay, this goes into the next one. Treasurer request for board to eliminate the requirement to sign minutes. The reason is motion and approval. You know anything more about that, Tom?
I know Carl has a whole deal made up with that because he was talking to Wayne earlier, or months ago about it. But he'll take it up with you next
Why
week.
don't we pick that up at the, we'll just
Yeah, next
delay that to the next meeting. It's okay?
Absolutely.
That's the next meeting, March something. All right. Okay, the treasurer's financial report. You're gonna do that for us, Tom?
Yes, sir. Okay, the general checking account balance January 1st was $2,833. We put $4,000 in on January 3rd. We issued 2 checks in January that were not prior approved. One was to the United States Treasury for payroll taxes for $106.84 and Clay Electric for $281.10. Balance January 31st, we were overdrawn $67.16. Current month transfer, $7,500 in. We have the following checks that were prepared. Check number 3738 for Clay Electric for $300. 3739 Carl Coker for his expenses, $141.77. 3740 Lewis Longman and Walker, $12.50. That should be their final check. 3741 Lee's Valve and Pump Repair, $1,500. That's his monthly maintenance. 3742 McCall Service, that's actually 2 treatments, $730. 3743 to myself for $650, and 3747 Clay Today for $255.15 for ads from October, excuse me, and December. Total checks, $4826.92. That gives us a current checking balance of $2,605.92. The money market account, we started the year off with $636,897. We had $4727.64 put in from Clay County. We transferred $4,000 out. We had monthly interest of $27.01. That gave us a balance at the end of the month of $637,651.98. We've moved $7,500 out to cover this month's expenses. We now have $630. $151.98 in the bank, and our total funds balance is $632,757.90. And we will need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Okay, a motion and second. Any questions on this? Nope. Okay.
We're also gonna need a motion to approve the checks. 3736, which started in January, through 3747. We need an approval for those checks.
Okay, well, let's get a vote on the first one. In favor of the first motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now the second motion, we'll need a motion on it.
Approve checks numbered 3736 through 3747.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? No. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, carries. There's a 2020, 2021 fiscal audit issue. I think that's what you gave me earlier today.
Well, it was an engagement letter that you signed, which we are now going to return to them. The engineering verbiage for the audit is still outstanding.
Okay, and I'll make a comment or two about that. If you remember, this is the annual audit. The Treasury group, Carl, Tom, usually provides most of the information. In 2020, Coy provided a lot of engineering comments and dam evaluations and things like that. And I read through the response that the engineers had provided and wrote what I thought was appropriate. After having worked with the advisory committee some, I didn't specifically say to them, you look this thing over and, but in talking about all of the things that were in there and knowing that we're going to hire another engineering firm to do design work on these dams, and knowing that they have to do that, they have to evaluate a number of things, then the response that I felt appropriate, which I've made to Tracy Wood with the DEP and to Cammie Dewey of St. John Water Management District, and they were okay with it so far, is basically what I responded in the audit. And that was basically that we hired Tim Lee. Tim Lee repaired all of our valves, and he has a maintenance agreement, and monthly he does maintenance on those valves and inspects them and that sort of thing. He is the guy that opens and closes the valves in the event of the need to do that, in addition to checking them. And so those are the types of things, and I've said those things in these meetings here before, so there's nothing different than what was said. That's what was included that in the draft that the board has already seen. So apparently they're asking some more questions, and I know Carl is the one that's dealing with them, and we may have to come up with more engineering verbiage. I don't know, I ain't right like an engineer. I think they can understand what I wrote. So I think that's what he's talking about. We will be talking about the RFQ and engineers more in just a minute. The next item was unique entity ID, SAM, bank loans, and CW, SRF. You don't know anything
Next
about
month.
Huh?
Next month.
Yep, that moves into next month.
I can talk to the SAM.
Well, Carl put it on here, so
Okay.
he ain't here, so let's move it to March. You can talk, you're gonna talk in a little bit, so I'm not trying to keep you from talking,
Oh,
Jenny.
no, that's
But one of the things that you certainly can talk about when you give us an update on potential loans and, that's not what the word is, grants and that sort of thing, then I had heard a little bit about this CWS RF. Are you familiar with that?
Which is it?
CWS RF. Everybody puts things down.
I'm not sure about that one.
Okay, well, that's something that the state DEP apparently has longer range, longer term money
Oh,
possibly
yes,
available.
yes, yes, yes.
That up to maybe even 20 years or so, I don't know. So, that was something that was suggested, that we investigate.
What was the name of that?
The initials are CWS RF.
It's in the treasurer's report.
Okay, I've got it.
Yeah, it is Clean Water State Revolving Fund. That's what those initials stand for. What that really means, I don't know. I just know that it's supposed to be DEP involved with it, and it's kind of like a loan, but it's like longer term. And there's, obviously, if you're working with DEP, they're the ones that want, along with the rest of us people, lot owners and all, that want to see improvements in it. Then I think that could be beneficial. So we'll let Carl know some about it, and Janet, if you want to talk about it, you can later, or you can just put it down on your additional possibilities for financing. Okay. Let's see. Meeting audio video update. I think I've already talked about that a little bit. Tom, you've got a trial thing you're working on here today.
Yeah, just a, quick comment here. There's two microphones, they're both on. We get to the public speaking part, there's a microphone there on the podium. I'm using the same recorder, it looks like it's happy, so I'll check it here when we're done. I'm afraid to touch it.
You're using the old recorder?
Yeah, it's quite functional. And I had started my own inquiry as far as Sonic Leader. I see that name here, and I can circle back with Carl and with Darla regarding video and text to, or speech to text. But I question the value of that. I think we should get our new secretary involved if and when we get one appointed here.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got something for you.
Absolutely.
So, in the audio video update, as I mentioned, I'm recording now, and I sent you guys a recording of the prior meeting. That's something that we can't post until we get a longer term solution. That's something that we can generate a YouTube channel and post. That's something that the St. Johns River Water Management District does. It's something other government entities do. And then all we have to do is throw up a hyperlink to that on our website. So I think the public needs to be able to have access to our meetings, and this is the most direct way to get to it right now. So I'd like to make a motion that either myself or Carl post this on our public site moving forward.
Okay. We'll see if you get a second on that, then we'll have
I think I
a
second
discussion.
that.
I'll second that, but
Yeah.
we have a comment.
Yep.
Yeah, the recording of that I found on this instrument, they're quite garbled. The acoustics in this room are terrible. And I wouldn't put a native recording up there unless somebody can improve the quality of it. I think that's gonna be another factor going forward here.
The history of that machine is exactly what he said, and the last secretary who tried to dictate from it gave up. Even when it was working properly, you can't hear it properly, whereas Matt's is crystal clear. I mean, I heard it beautifully.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I'm glad you're recording as well. I've changed some of the settings in this, and it may be better. we'll find out.
Okay, so we've had a motion and a second. You're having discussion. Any other discussion? I would question, are you saying that you YouTube this thing and it can wind up where anybody in the country can have access to it?
Anybody in the world, yep.
Anybody in the world. So anybody in the world needs to have access to our business here.
This is a public meeting. Anyone in the world can have access to anything that we do currently. That's the whole purpose of the sunshine laws.
And that's also why we tell them we're recording, because if they don't want recorded, they have an option of saying nothing or leaving or whatever. But we are informing, and so everybody knows what you say becomes recorded and will be shared. Not here tonight.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate to have the secretary or equivalent person transcript it and post the transcript?
Well, minutes are merely a shortened version of what a 3-hour meeting is. And so you may still want to have the secretary do shortened minutes. You know, that may be an option too, but that gives you the complete meeting with all the conversations. And I can say this after 6 months of trying to take notes here, we go like this. We go from topic to topic and back again, so it's hard to always follow unless you actually are listening to it.
That's why I would do the entire transcript.
Yeah, well,
The
his
problem
is,
is gonna be some of it costs, if you get a cloud subscription and some of the other bells and whistles, it's gonna cost some money, and I question the value when the minutes are really all we need legally. Is that a true statement?
That's all we need.
It's all that's required in
Yeah.
the minutes, but.
the other is very nice, but we are required to have minutes, which are never as complete as the full version.
There's something to be said about voice inflection.
That too.
Let me just add on to Carol's point that it should be disclosed, and so going forward on your template for your agendas, just go ahead and put at the top or somewhere where it's noticeable that all meetings are recorded, and it probably should be mentioned on the website too,
Right.
just to keep it permanently disclosed.
And in the minutes, when I got to thinking about it, it should show up in every minute that it's been recorded.
Would there be middle ground that if someone wants to listen to the recordings, they can be made available?
Well, they have that right now. That's why if you take, you go back to the rules that were read to start with, it says if you want to appeal something, then you have to have the whole thing, and that includes a tape of it.
Sort of in a way, the benefit of having it available to everybody to listen to, as we go forward, we're going to be making some big decisions and changes, and it's not just our money, it's everybody's money we're talking about here, and everybody needs to be as informed as they can be about what's happening. And certainly when they know as much as they can know, then it gives them every opportunity to share thoughts back with us that may help us in the end.
As long as you're meeting the statutory requirements of the minutes and you make your statutory duty, really what we're talking about now is just what more can we do for disclosure.
Right.
And it's really a board decision. I mean, whether you want to record it and post it on the website right away, it's a board decision. Whether, to Tom's point or question or comment, make it known that, hey, it's available upon request. You can do that as well. It's really whatever you all decide to do as a group.
I would just be concerned about, we all know what can happen to the internet, and it's just more drama that we may not need.
It's true that the internet causes drama, but if you have the original and you can go back and say, here it is, listen to it exactly as it was, you can clear up a lot of misunderstandings more rapidly that way. This is the way a lot of our governmental entities are going.
And it's not like an audience member's taking a 30-second snippet from a meeting and then turning the intent of that upside down.
Right.
This is the full posting.
If you look on YouTube right now, I think you can find on the September 13th meeting, I think you can find just that what you just said don't hold water. Because there were edits made on on the postings and that sort of thing on September the 13th meeting. And they're on YouTube right now. And that can cause more problems than it solves. Matter of fact, I know the lake lot owners quit recording their meeting because of some of the YouTube postings.
But wasn't that Facebook?
Yes, that was a Facebook
It
Live.
wasn't, that wasn't YouTube, was it?
It's on YouTube. You Google YouTube and look for LAMSBD meeting and you'll find it.
And we started on Facebook and someone moved it to YouTube,
Ah,
Is that right?
but they didn't,
anonymous source.
but they also adjusted what was said before they moved it, correct?
I can't speak to that.
See, I didn't think anybody can go in and change what you did. Is that right or wrong?
I mean, they could have a recording device in front of their speaker. They could record it and then do whatever the heck they want with it.
Similar to how the dead actors wind up in new movies these days.
Yeah, I mean, given enough resources, somebody can change anything they want, but.
Well, think about it, I think you need to be open in communication. We have open meetings, people that are interested enough come to these meetings. And obviously there's communication that goes on. Could it be better? Yeah. I can tell you one thing, if you think back about some of the meetings that I've been involved in, and I've only been on board for a year, I wouldn't want some of that stuff recorded.
Well, but that's a point.
What, that's a point that people won't say what they should say or what?
Well, to some degree, yes.
Well,
If it's respectful and honest, anything should be sayable.
that is true.
But if it's not respectable,
If it's not respectful, you're not supposed to still be in this room
that's right.
based on these rules.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'd look at Mr. Wall and say, you have a lot of experience with groups like this. What's your opinion?
Yeah, well, it's been said, many governmental entities already do this. I mean, not everyone does, but some do, and the same with homeowners associations or condo associations. Some of them do it, some of them don't. It's always a concern that someone could do clippings and take things out of context, but if you have the full original on your website, that can't be changed by anybody that doesn't have access to go in there and change it. So once it's uploaded, it's there. So if someone does take clippings and make changes, at least you have the original recording on the website to demonstrate that if someone does that, it
Speak
wasn't
for itself,
accurate.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, then does not that mean that we've got to have clear procedures and a clear rules, regulations, how this thing works or not? Shouldn't we have that?
Yeah.
I'm working on that now because I'm working on the procedure book. I'll work on it more this week, but it's not ready yet. But yes, we need procedures. No matter what, every time we go to get a bank loan, they want to know what our process and procedures are.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, my process is I upload it. We have a template that just shows one picture that is the LAMSBD logo on a black background. Other than that, there is no video. It's audio only.
And you name it, you title it.
And it's titled appropriately.
And it would say something, I forgot what it is right now.
LAMSBD,
Original.
February 7th, original
Yes.
recording, yes.
See, that to me is the key right there. You state what it is.
I can do that, yep.
And is it important to know who made the recording? Like I don't think you're titled right now in that.
No, and I don't think that's important. It's important as what it is.
Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, anybody sitting in the audience right now could be recording just like they did in the September 13th meeting.
Not
and then
post.
selectively,
Not posting on our
What's that?
website though. They
Not
couldn't post
posting
it
on
to
our
our website.
so
we can post it almost immediately.
And that
Yeah.
makes it our official recording.
Exactly.
I see it kind of as a protection.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why, I can't speak obviously for every entity that's doing this, but that's why a lot have started doing it, is because you would have an audience member that would record portions.
And then,
Now, that's not a blanket statement that applies to everybody, but I know that is why some entities have started doing that. Like, okay, well, if an audience member is gonna do that, we're just gonna record the whole thing, and we're gonna post it to our website as this is the official district recording or board recording. It doesn't necessarily have to say Matt recorded it, because what's being done up here is done on behalf of the board, so we can just say this is the official district recording by the board.
So doesn't that mean that, in this case, Matt's recording it, or whoever's recording it, or we're recording it on a new machine? Doesn't that mean that somebody needs to listen to that in its entirety to approve it being posted, and there has to be an approval process for it to be posted or not?
It's not required, but if we chose to have that mechanism, we could,
Yeah, I mean,
You're saying it's not required by whom?
by law.
I mean, the legal response is there's not a statutory requirement like there is for approval of meeting minutes. I mean, there's not an equivalent statute on approval of recordings. Now, is it smart to do that? Yes. I mean, there should be a check and balance, and that goes to the whole point that Carol was saying, or even you all talked about. There should be a written procedure and process, and that's true with anything you all do. There should be at least some kind of written procedure, like, you know, it gets recorded the day of the meeting. Within 48 hours, it gets reviewed by two members. I mean, however you want to structure it, but there just needs to be a process, and that way, when it gets uploaded, it's when that process is completed.
plus we have something to hang our hat on. That's the procedure, we followed it.
Right. And it's not a statutory thing, it's an internal procedure, so.
And we know what time our meetings start, we know what time our meetings end, and if that recording doesn't fall within those limits, we know there's something wrong.
And that is exactly what I'm getting at. It's not as simple as just say Matt can record the thing and then we're gonna put it on the website. I think it's gotta have more procedure tied to it than that. For instance, I don't remember Matt saying that he was recording the thing last time.
He did.
I don't remember it, but
No, you
I'm not
won't.
saying he didn't.
The important thing is, though, he did say it, you don't remember it, I didn't remember it until I heard it again.
Yeah.
So it's like a wonderful double check on, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I understand all the good parts and that sort of thing,
And that
But my point is that we are a board and we should be conducting our business in agreement. We're sitting here talking about something that's already been posted on, or at least in emails that's out there somewhere that anybody, I guess, could have access to the meeting on the 11th.
The good news
And yet
is,
we
nobody looks at
didn't-
my YouTube.
The bad news is we didn't discuss that the way we're doing it right now. We did not discuss it the way we're doing it right now, and I think that's wrong. I think procedurally that's wrong.
Okay, so I agree that procedurally it may have been wrong, but I really appreciated getting it this week. That's all I can say about that. And I'll be glad to write a procedure if you want to think about it.
And that could be part of the secretary's role.
Yep. I mean, I'm not going to be the secretary, hopefully after tonight, but still and all, I'll certainly help that person.
Okay, well, the way I see it, we've got a motion and a second, and we've had discussion.
Yep.
And the only thing that I would say is that we need a procedure. But so far, we've still got the procedurally, we've got a motion, so we need to vote on the motion. All right, so repeat the motion. Matt?
Well, if you all want, the motion could be to create a procedure to vote on at the next meeting. I mean, that could be what.
So do you have a procedural preference, Alton?
Just that it covers the review and who does the posting and when and those kinds of details.
I know, but do you have a preference on those kinds of details? To include in this motion? or is that something you'd like to think about? for the
Well,
next
you know,
meeting?
right now with minutes, we're not required, even though some people have said otherwise, we're not required to have minutes posted within 2 days of our meeting. So I would think that we ought to pick a reasonable time, a week from the meeting.
I think you
But it
can,
doesn't, you know, I'm not stuck on that. I don't want you thinking, hey, I'm trying to say, here's the motion that I'll accept and it's gotta be this way. No, y'all can outvote me anyway, so.
are you comfortable with 7 days for some of us to review it before it's posted?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we know who's gonna be reviewing it, and then Darla is likely the one that will post it to the website.
Okay.
But I have to check that one for sure. But
Yeah,
7
which procedurally, we ought to have procedures already, and I'm not, after some of the things that have happened lately, I'm not sure about our procedures, if we got them, and if we got them, do we follow them, and does everybody understand them, do they follow through with them, that sort of thing. I guess that's another story.
That's why I'm working on the book.
Procedures, we ought to have a procedure that says how something gets posted to the website. It shouldn't be just somebody decides to call Darla and get it posted. I don't think,
When I write the procedure, it'll be specific.
No,
But for
so-
right now,
Yeah.
the way it looks to me is like Matt creates it or someone creates it. Maybe it's a secretary in the future, but it's reviewed within 7 days and passed to Darla for posting to the website. That's about as
Yeah.
simple as you can make that one.
Yeah, but if you just took anything being posted, we know that we have a requirement, we have certain requirements for posting of certain information.
Right.
And like on the agenda for the meetings, that supposed to be posted on the website 7 days before the meeting. There's
Right.
probably other rules like that. I don't know what they are.
We'll find
And the
out.
problem is that a lot of us sitting here have been here, including you, you've been here a year and a half
Yep,
on the board.
yep.
You're the senior person that's here tonight.
Okay,
All
so
right.
7 days ought to do it.
You go, girl.
So the problem is that as an example, we found out that we missed the payment on the lights on the dam because it went to the post office box and we weren't checking the post office box. Well, that's a procedural detail, okay?
That's
shouldn't
it's in the secretary's manual, but I'm not the secretary and I
No, I'm
didn't
not
have a
saying,
manual.
I'm not saying that. There's several of us, including me. Ultimately, I'm the chairman, so anything that gets dropped through the cracks falls back on me. And I accept that responsibility. But I don't want to have to be at a point where every meeting, I guess I will, but I don't want to have to be at a point where I learn what all these rules and regulations are, and then y'all are supposed to be helping out specifically on certain things. So I have to say, hey, Tom, did you charge the battery for that recorder for tonight's meeting? And different things like that. But that's that's how things have dropped through the crack.
Well, one of the things that I think Hans will agree that happens in a board as it matures is we all get jobs. So it doesn't have to fall on your shoulders. It's a
So it's
shared.
not, I've delegated stuff, and I think
Okay.
that's where I've dropped the balls. I haven't come back necessarily and followed up with what I thought somebody was doing.
Well, it's a shared responsibility
that.
and it needs to be in the procedures. And then you don't have to sit there and do it all.
Yeah.
It's shared. And even all these guys have a desire to do work, just we don't have any assigned work yet. And we are looking to you to assign us some jobs.
Okay. All right, where we at?
We're ready for a.
Ready for a vote.
Ready for
a vote.
a vote, or are you gonna change the proposal, or what did you wanna do?
Now, let's vote this up and down, and then if, by next meeting, I'll send out a draft of some form of protocol that includes an approval process, and that's something that we can discuss and go back and forth on after we've all had time to think about But unless one of the members of the audience gets up and starts screaming the F word multiple times, I don't think we're gonna have much of an issue with posting this.
No.
You should have been here on the 13th meeting.
I believe it.
That was a tough one. All right, so, have you changed your motion to something?
Nope, my motion remains the same, that, that we continue to record meetings and that I will post them on the public website in the form of a hyperlink through YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, that's your motion, and
That's my
somebody
motion.
seconded that, all right?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, aye?
I'm opposed only on the basis that we review the procedure.
Well, then you gotta be, it's for the whole motion, so it's, if you approve the motion, or you don't approve the motion. So I say no. So it carried though, so I'm outvoted.
Was it 4-3 or was it 5-2?
It was 5-2.
Were you a yay?
Tom did not approve.
No, it wasn't a yay.
All right, so it's a 4-3.
Oh, it's Jerry didn't. Okay.
What?
No, I'm not sorry, Jerry. Larry.
All in favor of this motion, stick your hand up. Not me, I'm just doing that as an example. So we've got 4, and all opposed. So 4-3, the motion carried. But it's not gonna be posted on, your motion did not say posted on the website.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
Yes,
It did?
it did.
And who's gonna approve that then?
We just did.
No, how's it gonna be procedurally be done? That's what I'm getting at.
Right now, procedurally, it's gonna go to Darla to post it for us.
So anybody can send to Darla anything to be posted on the
No,
website?
no, the board can send it to Darla. Okay,
and who is that?
Well, in this case, it's gonna be Matt.
Okay. I'm not, procedurally, I think we got a problem there with that. So the motion's gonna stand,
Okay.
but I think procedurally, that's a problem. And, I don't know if you wanna think about that and come back to us. Worst case is we do this for another month, because we've already done it once. And so, worst case is, it winds up being changed at the next meeting.
Sure.
That's right.
Yes, is that right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, the next meeting will have written procedures, so that's what will be voted on.
Yep. So I'll make a note. Are you gonna do the procedures or am I?
I'll get a draft out.
All right.
Okay, so that'll be the next meeting then.
But since we can't go back and forth and edit each other's, you might as well just come up with your own thoughts as well.
Okay, and I'll send them to you and you can do the final.
Sure.
Okay. Secretary search. This was under the top part, but Carol, you got it down here too. So.
Yeah. You want that now?
Yeah, let's do that now. That's important.
Okay. We had, and I do have with me 9 final candidates, and of those 2 came to the top. And both Janet and myself interviewed them, and Carl did all the references. Hans, if you need something on this, I've got you a copy.
I've printed a copy.
Okay. I sent out to all the board members a kind of a roundup of thoughts about it so that they would have some insight into each one of the persons that are now being considered. And at this point, I'm willing to answer any questions, or Janet can answer any of the questions that anybody might have. They're both good candidates, both qualified. One's a little more mature than the other, as far as her experience level and the admin part of the job. So, does anybody have any questions?
No question.
No?
Do you have a recommendation on which one you want to pick?
I do, but I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions or
Okay.
you to maybe give us your opinion. I'm sure you read it.
Yeah, I read it, and, I think y'all have looked at, for a good while now for secretary, because that took place on September 13th also.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate the fact that you didn't rush through it, because if you rushed, I mean, I know what you're talking about taking minutes and all that. I appreciate you having done that for the last several months, and, I know that's a.
There's one point that I can make between the two candidates. One has a 5-year aspiration to become a full-time educator, and the other, probably in 5 years, will be a fully retired human being. So, having no idea how long we'll be lucky enough to have this person that we're getting ready to hire, that is something to think about. But either one are qualified.
One is a little bit more technologically savvy than the other, I believe, from interviewing them. But they're both terrific human beings.
The one that is technically probably more qualified would be the educator, and the other person has had certainly plenty of use of all of the various things that we might expect her to use, Excel, Word. I don't think it'd get much more complicated than that. Probably the biggest job that a secretary has in front of her right now is that we have a whole file cabinet full of historical documents over there that need to be sorted through and eventually digitized. And Tom has digitized last year's, and we need to get it all to that point so that we know where our materials are and we can get to them quickly. So that's going to be a large job for that person coming up. First, it's a sorting job, and that's going to require you to give some of us the responsibility to do that. But then it still has to get digitized, and that may even be a company that does that versus a secretary. Because there's a lot of material back there to digitize. So, from my point of view, I guess if I had to give my feelings, and I did try to on this write-up, I would think that Ms. Phillips might fill our role better for us at the present time, but I'm open for other people's thoughts.
Is that the educator?
No. And she certainly is qualified. I don't mean to suggest that she isn't. She is.
The educator's a little more savvy though in technology.
Yes.
That's important in this case.
Well, I certainly gave it
But they're both
some
very good.
importance here. Yes.
Yeah, they're both excellent candidates. If I'm looking at personality and the ability to get along with some difficult personalities, I would have to say Miss Phillips.
So it sounds like you two were involved in interviewing, and you're both suggesting Phillips then.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yeah. And Matt,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
She and I both have felt strongly for a while about Phillips, but we also feel very confident of the other one if that's how it goes.
I mean, there's nothing negative whatsoever we could say about
Just, we have
about
two
the other
really good
candidates. They're
candidates.
fabulous candidates.
Well, that's great, because for a while we didn't have any, huh?
Yeah.
So persevered, stuck with it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Did you have something else, Matt?
No, it's, I'd like to make a motion, that we make an offer to Ms. Phillips.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Jerry, you opposed? Okay, I didn't know whether you want to say something or that was an opposed.
No, I like both of them. I just was headed towards the technology more than, but they're both excellent. Compared to what we have, they're really suited.
Oh, no kidding.
Amen.
So that was 6-1.
Okay, staff reports. Tom, you have anything? Mine's, is in there? Okay, the Chairman, I sent y'all, a copy of the request for qualification for professional engineering services for the rehabilitation of the Lake Ashbury Dam Complex. And, this was, the advisory committee and I met several times and talked about this process. Wayne had, Flowers, our attorney, had, given us some guidelines on, I guess more than guidelines, probably more like rules about when you're doing these kind of projects, the process you have to follow. And, so we have, the end result is after drafts and then making some changes and discussions and that sort of thing, then, this is, a request for qualifications that I'm bringing to the board tonight to discuss and if possible to approve. We may have to make some changes. That's what I wanted to do, is, to get this process going, which is the start of hiring an engineering firm for all of these improvements. Matter of fact, there's a few things, did anybody not read this? Everybody read it? Everybody get it, start with it?
Yes.
I know we've had problems with,
No, you were right on line.
I was okay with this one?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
You get it, too?
I did.
Okay. All right. So, we've got an audience here, and I'm sure everybody's interested in, okay, what the heck are you doing? You do a request for qualifications. You narrow that down to, a preferred quote based on qualifications supplier, but you also have a couple of others as backup. Then you sit down and more or less negotiate with them, talk to them more, affirm that, yeah, okay, that's the guys you want to do the work for us. And then you wind up hiring them. As you go through this whole thing here, there's a lot of steps you go through to get there. But basically the purpose, let me read you the purpose. The purpose says, the LAMSBD or board intends to select one or more professional engineering design firm or engineer to provide surveying, inspection, geotechnical exploration and testing, design, permitting, bidding, and construction phase services for any sub-project associated with Lake Ashbury Dam and Spillway Rehabilitation Project, hereinafter called the project. Firms submitting qualifications for the project shall have current certificates of authorization by the Florida Bureau of Professional Regulation and be recognized as a legitimate and reputable dam design consulting entity with the Florida State Dam Safety Office, Division of Water Resource Management. So, as you can see, these people would be involved in permitting and all these other things I mentioned, some construction oversight involvement later on. And they have to, it's not gonna be Joe Blow down the street that decided he knew this was going on, and so he's gonna form him a construction company, he can pour concrete and all that, and it's not gonna be, they have to meet the qualifications. So that's the purpose of this RFQ. Then there's background information, where it talks about general description of Lake Ashbury, south and the north, and Lake Ryan with the dams and spillways. It talks about Lake Larks, owned and operated by a separate entity, it drains into the system of lakes. It's got a map in here, figure 1, that shows the map that shows the lakes and the dams. It's got, it talks about what we have now, the pipes for drawdown. It talks about reports that were done. the Corps of Engineers report in 1978, Jackson's report in 2020, talks about high-density polyethylene pipes that were put in. It talks about the South Dam improvements in 2013, roughly. So it's got some background information there. The reports that I talked about, they will have access to those reports and that information. So hopefully some of that information will be verifiable and usable, but they're gonna have to verify that it is accurate, because they're putting their name on it, whoever we want to select. The maps that I mentioned, yeah, there's, all of those reports are referenced in a section in the back of this. There's a general cross-sectional map. Y'all have seen this before, I'm sure, of what the drawdown pipes and all look like. There's some dimensions and all that on there. Quite frankly, if you remember our discussion in September, some of the information that's on this particular drawing needs to be revised. Not that it's wrong, but there was, as an example, the valve diameters are the controlling factor on these drawdown systems as they exist today. And that diameter was not what was used in the calculations. So, the liner diameter may not be right in here either. So there's, when we go through this, we need to be a little bit cautious on that. The engineer shall provide all necessary services required for a complete permitted design package suitable for bidding and construction of the project. So they're responsible for permitted design. That means they're the ones that the permit comes from St. John Water Management District. And so these guys are the ones that really do the heavy hitting with St. John's Water Management District in the permit design and approval. They, once they're selected, then they've got a task of project administration, management, and quality control. They have to coordinate with the LAMSBD board and report on all of these types of things. They prepare for and attend a project kickoff meeting. So after they've done the total engineering package and all that, then they still would be involved in a project kickoff meeting and meetings with the necessary people, being suppliers of the contractors, construction guys, however many of them they need. Plus they have a responsibility to meet with the board, an advisory group, and the board itself, and be present at meetings to address and explain what the heck they're doing.
Can I ask a question? Do we have a timeline? Is there an estimated timeline?
Yeah, it's at the back of this. I'll get to it in just a minute, if that's okay. Field surveys and investigation and preliminary design is part of it. So they really have to make sure that they check information. You can't just go off of what somebody else said. The geotechnical and structural investigations, they have to do that. They have to provide technical memorandums summarizing those field results and all that. The engineer will provide at least 2 viable design options for consideration by the board. So they're not going to be just coming in with one design. Now, as the system progresses, then, you know, they present information at say 30%, 60%, I think at 90%, if I remember correctly. Walt, if I say anything wrong, just stick your hand up and, you know, you can correct that. I don't want to, especially since we're recording this thing, you know what I mean? I'm not intentionally gonna say anything wrong, but, yeah, here it is. 30% preliminary engineering design will consist at a minimum, it tells you what that is. I guess I should just keep reading, you spelled it out pretty well, Walt, appreciate that. Yeah, drawings include dam, spillway, drawdown structure plan, profile sheets, valving and connection piping details, sizing, locational analysis for air release and surge relief valves, erosion and sedimentation control plans and details, technical specifications, updated opinion of probable construction costs, So I think that's important, because we're sitting here trying to put a budget together. We're trying to determine more about CIP list and that sort of thing. And, you know, it's almost like trying to walk before you can crawl. You know, this is the basis for the whole process. At the 90% design shall address comments received at the 60% phase, so they'll have that with the board. So, you know, you're asking, where are we, what are we doing, that sort of thing. That this is kind of the guideline of what's in procedure of what's going through to get to permitting. They prepare the stuff for the permitting, and that's still a big unknown. You know, we're sitting here with 100-year dams that were designed for 100-year flood. South Dam was permitted for half of PMP, which is about a 500-year flood. And yet the St. John Water Management District current rules, if you were building a dam today, would be PMP, full PMP, which is about, if you put it in inches, the 100 year is about 11 inches, 500 years about 16 inches, and the PMP is 32
I think
or
it's
something.
37 maybe, something like that.
It's almost double what the 500 years. So when you think about that, the permitting part of this is going to be really, really critical, because you're talking almost double the difference between the 500 year and a full PMP, half PMP and full PMP. So, bid phases, assistance, when you get into bidding for contractors, this engineering group would assist with that. They would, stakeholder involvement and public outreach, which is what there's been some discussion about on information flow. The engineer will be expected to support to LAMSBD as it relates to stakeholder involvement and public outreach, including the participation of up to 3 public meetings and providing 1 GIS-based project overview exhibit and detailed technical drawings. The board will develop mailing lists and maintain community contacts for all stakeholders for use during the public awareness campaign. So, construction phase services, the engineer will provide construction observation and administrative services during the construction period of the project. The board will prepare a notice of award to the selected contractor and prepare and issue a notice to proceed. The engineer will provide additional administrative services during construction that will include the following: attend and assist in conducting a pre-construction conference, review the submittals and shop drawings, produce logs, review requests for information, and produce logs on that, review periodic requests for partial payments to the contractor, review change order requests, produce change management log, attend monthly progress meetings, and produce agenda and meetings minutes, Provide contract closeout assistance, a punch list support when you get towards the end of the project, etc. Coordinate periodic on-site meetings with the board and agency personnel, if we have DEP, St. John Water Management District, as required. Assist in the selection of an independent geotechnical testing laboratory to perform quality control testing. That's like on concrete street and maybe compaction stuff, things like that. LAMSBD to compensate selected testing lab for services. Engineer to review and approve testing methods, equipment, results. Provide full-time construction inspection and quality control, and making sure that it's done the way the drawings are. Prepare record drawings based on the contractor's red line markup drawings and contractor's survey information. So that's an as-built. Take the original plan drawings, and when you got the as-built, you may have to modify something or it changes a little bit. Then that's going to be documented, and you got the final drawings. Record drawings will be submitted by an engineer in AutoCAD, PDF, and GIS formats. Okay, then estimated request for quote schedule that you talked about, Jerry, and these can change, but the request for quote advertised February the 9th. We're sitting here on the 7th. So that may or may not happen. But then if you looked at it and said, okay, what's next? Request for qualifications due date, March 16th, so that's a little over, that's 5 weeks later. Selection committee ranking, March 25th, that's another 5 weeks. Oral presentations, optional if we want to do that, to be April 8th, so that's another, 2 weeks. Final selections, another week after that. And then you've picked somebody, then you negotiate fee structure, it's another week later, and then you're ready to go with the contract on April 28th, it's another week later. So from February the 9th to April 28th, before you would have a contract done. So what is that? March, April, almost 3 months, 2.5 months. Okay, then it talks about their deadline to submit this proposal and what they have to submit. They have to submit 9 hard copies, electronic copies on 2 USB drives of the proposal. They've got to be received by LAMSBD, by us, not the advisory group, no later than 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 16th. Now again, these dates can change. It's got to have the project name and firm's name and address must be shown on the outside of the sealed envelopes, addressed to me, LAMSBD chairman, with our address here. No submittals will be accepted after the deadline. Submittals received after the designated time will not be considered. Submittals must be paper copies, appropriately bound. Emailed or fax copies will not be accepted. This is a qualification-based selection procedure for professional engineering services. There will be no public opening of the proposals. Proposal contents should be bound with the name of the firm and name of the project visible on the outside cover. Each submittal will be limited to 40 paid double-sided sheets addressing all aspects of the request for proposal. And to standardize responses and simplify the comparison and evaluation process of the responses, all submittals must be organized in the manner set forth below. Should have a cover letter, table of contents, the following major sections, including tabs marking section locations. Sheets should be printed double-sided, 20 pages, exclusive of the table of contents, resumes, and that sort of thing. Should have a covered letter signed by an officer of their firm. Provide a primary contact for all correspondence related to the proposal. Provide the name, resume, office location, and Florida Board of Professional Engineers license number of the engineer of record for the project. I know you talked about that some, about when we look for grants, you're looking for a registered professional engineer. Provide certificate of insurance. It includes dollar limits, currently held by the firm. Board may require additional insurance related to agreements, contracts arising from the RFP. These will be discussed with the firm at the time of contract agreement negotiation. All right, required minimum coverage is listed in here. And Carol, you and Carl know more, and Tom know more about this than probably any of the rest of us, I'm assuming. But this is something that we may need
Look at.
we certainly need to look at. But this is required minimum coverage, but I'll read again, and it says, the board may require additional insurance. One of the things that's important in selecting a really professional, qualified engineering outfit is some of, they have liabilities big time for this process, the project, but then after the project too. So that's probably gonna limit the types of people and the numbers of people that we get to bid on. I hope we get at least one or two. I hope we get at least two or three so we have some kind of selection, but I don't know, it's a pretty tall order when you think about the liabilities, and we as property owners and we as a board face liabilities ourselves, so this is I mention that because of the seriousness of what we're dealing with and what this engineering outfit would be dealing with also. So you got other things like the whoever would get it would have to say that they've got in-house resources capable of doing the work. In other words, they're not going to go to somewhere else out of state and bring in somebody they don't even know, things like that. They're supposed to provide any litigation, arbitration, or mediation claims that have been involved in similar types of projects. So again, you're checking your background. So they're supposed to talk about performance, experience, and performance on similar projects. So when you get into it, there's a point system on trying to rate these guys and their firm's experience and performance on similar projects. We were saying that's worth 25 points. And it's got a list of what all's involved in that. Project team qualifications, 25 points. That's their key employees, key team members, that sort of thing. Understanding the project and approach to performing the required services, 20 points. And proximity to project site, 5 points. And then we have the interview with this board, and that's worth 25 points. So that's how you go through trying to objectively, subjectively go through and come up with the evaluation. We can do investigations, interviews, anything like that to aid in the evaluation. Okay. Here, if you say, well, what are you really trying to do in this evaluation? It's anticipated that a contract for engineering services will be entered into with the firm that, in the opinion of the board, offers the most favorable combination of qualifications and approach. A budget will be negotiated with the selected firm upon notice of award. In the event LAMSBD is unable to negotiate a mutually agreeable cost with the number one ranked firm, then we're authorized to begin negotiation with the number two ranked firm. The board reserves the right to decline awarding the contract depending on qualifications and final proposal. So we're not leaving ourselves an out here. We do leave ourselves an out, I guess is what I meant to say. then you wind up with a contract. Ownership of submittal documents, we wind up with all of the documents associated with it. Then there's the reference sheet that I talked about, with the USACE 1978 report, the law 1988 report, the RS&H 2000 report, the MacTech 2004 report, and the Jackson 2020 report. That's all supplemental information that they will have access to. So that is the RFQ. Any questions or comments?
So question on really the only question I had was in the part where it's discussing engineer will provide at least 2 viable design options. Can you be a little more specific on what do you mean by that?
No, we're just saying that, we want them to think more than just about whatever comes to their mind originally. And, don't just give us one proposal, give us, one idea of what to do, give us a couple ideas. Quite frankly, this advisory group's had multiple ideas and have continued to change as time has gone on. So that's all I mean. There's nothing specific. There wasn't anything specific in mind. It says, do this or that or that.
So
if you don't tell us what we think it ought to look like, then that's not gonna. We won't cut you out just because of that. Give us a couple of options. Our job, I think, is, and I'll try not to be. No. Let me just say that our job is to listen to these people, look at the information, look at what they present us, and then select them on the basis of what they present and how they think about the process and all of that. It's a project that's going to be around for 50 years. People here know a lot about the history of some of this stuff. So if somebody comes in and they just have one idea, then that they may be great, and all these rating things, but we have to be convinced as a board that we're agreeing to an engineer and therefore a system that's going to be around and functioning effectively for a long time without bankrupting all the property owners,
So when you say, again, I'm trying to get a little better understanding of this. You're describing it like it's one big project, and I see 8 small different projects.
Okay.
So are we wanting 2 viable design alternatives for each of the different projects that are going to be part of the bigger project? Or are you specifically talking about replacement of the spillways, or erosion, or is which aspect of the project are we wanting alternatives on?
This RFQ is for, it's for the whole process. Now, we're gonna have priorities. Like the North Dam should be the highest priority, because that's the one that's got the biggest issues and the biggest liabilities and that sort of thing. But so there will be, you're not gonna have enough money to do everything at once, but you need to know what your overall concept is gonna be.
This document here is to hire
Yes.
an engineering firm, not to, we need to give them the overview of the scope and perhaps a scope matrix to 8 little projects point. But the goal here is to get somebody on board that we can start moving forward with. So I have just a couple questions. Some of these that I've seen in the past, not necessarily relating to civil engineering work, but I don't see the phrase best practices anywhere in this document. And that does help bring forward the thought that we want to know. We don't want to know what you're familiar with. We want you to go out and hunt down the The other thing that I would like to see is this list of engineers who are registered with the dam safety office. Just to see, okay, see how many there are, and then we see what kind of response we get. That to me says something.
Yeah, but that doesn't need to be in the RFQ.
Yeah, true,
But yes, that has already been addressed too.
Okay.
With advisory group, there's, your next order of business would be, once you get this approved, then you put a public notice in the Clay Today. You draw up the contract officially for us, correct? And Hans, and then you put the notice in the Clay Today, and then you can, at that point, if you said there's 15 people in the area that have done this kind of work, that because of Tim Lee saying so, or saying he's worked with people, or you saying so with, like North Florida rectors and people like that, then we can and will send those people directly a RFQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I've got is I've been involved in some jobs where the agency hires offshore people to do drafting and actual engineering, and then they'll bring it back and scrub it and put their name on it. Is that, can that legally be a criteria that we want content requirements?
The good news is whoever drafts it, there's an engineer of record and his seal is on the document.
Yeah.
He's responsible for it. Doesn't matter who drafts
And
it.
to that point, the flip side of that is you can save a lot of money on a job doing mundane things offshore, but I just bring that up. That's my only comments.
Okay. Carol.
This is how I understand all of this. This is gonna be our base document that will go out for everything we send to bid, correct? This is how we expect it to come to us. So our advisory group may go through the CIP and decide what happens first, second, and third. And then once that's decided and the board agrees, then we go out for these proposals, and this goes with everything. No matter if we have one project or 8 projects, this is what we use.
Not exactly.
Okay.
This is for hiring the overall engineering outfit for the complete.
So this
thing.
is like
now,
a
you could pick certain things, like say removing the trees off of the dam. You could separate some of that stuff out and not use your quote engineer.
Okay, so this is the one big project.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the main deal. If you look at what's driving everything from DEP and what the board has done in the referendum or whatever that was called for assessments, then this addresses the south lake, the Lake Ryan, and the North Lake.
So then we think of it as one?
This part we do.
Okay, so
Now,
this is the number one.
Then you gotta balance it out with a budget and cash flow and all
Sure.
that kind of stuff that we still don't know all of. And we know that we're not gonna have enough cash to do everything at one time. So you start with, whatever the priority projects are, you put them in priorities.
So is this the equivalent of our old district engineer?
I don't know how that worked.
That was just one big engineer that sometimes subbed out all the jobs to everybody else. Meaning like Decoy was our engineer, district engineer, but they really didn't do the work. They subbed it out to Jackson, to this one, to that one. And so they were called our district engineers. So I want to know, is this person going to be our district engineer?
No, they're not a district engineer. They are the project engineer.
Project engineer, okay.
Yeah.
So then, if they're our project engineer, and we don't necessarily have a district engineer, will our advisory board be instrumental in giving us some, I don't think we call them recommendations, but what do you call that? After they look these people over? When we get this back in, who looks at this first?
It comes back to me.
Comes back to you.
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Well, then I give it to you guys, and we all look at it.
Do our advisory group?
Well, they'll get it to make sure that it follows all these procedures and all. Yeah.
Are they allowed to give us opinions?
They are not allowed to give a recommendation.
No
They are
recommendation.
They are to do fact finding, information gathering, those kinds of things. I pointed that out in the.
Yeah, you can ask questions to the advisory group, you can answer them. But this is written to be as flexible as possible. So if you wanted to pivot, you wanted this same firm to be your district engineer, as long as there's not a conflict between being the district engineer and executing this project, you can do that. But it's written to give you all kinds of flexibility.
And you can, I think, if I'm right. Let's say that we've got something that's going crazy and we really need to address it. Well, here's a good example. Tracy Wood, I talked to her the other day, and she still is going to send us a letter, and she has not done that yet, and she had not acknowledged that, and she didn't act like she's in any big hurry to do it, and that's okay with me. But when she does that, you bet there's going to be some actions required that we're going to have some kind of engineering expertise on. So at that point, depending on where we're at in this process, we may have selected an engineer for the major project, and we may say to them, hey, we got something else going on that's outside of this. Do you guys have somebody that can work with us on it? And we could hire them outside of this, major project agreement. Or we could hire anybody.
Yeah, so long as the scope, and our new attorney can opine on that, so long as the scope covers that task, that future task, whatever it might be, if it covers that adequately enough in the services that are described, then you can do that. You can pivot, and this can become, an engineer for another purpose. District engineer, dredging, whatever that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Other comments, questions?
I felt very comfortable with the document. It seemed to cover everything that I'd be concerned about, that I need to think about, that we need to understand before we go forward with some major thing.
All right, so I move that we approve the RFQ.
Second, sorry.
Okay, motion and second. Do you have any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so what that means, I believe, is that you will have to draft a contract or an ad for posting in the play today. And you'd have to draw up, also start drafting a contract. Well, we don't need that yet. All we need is this right now.
Yeah, for now, it's all.
Yeah, but then eventually we'll have a contract, which it says that in here. So, is there anything else that you know we need to do? Walt, have I missed anything of significance?
No, you would just, probably some edits need to be made based on some of your comments about valve sizes or liners or, in some of the exhibits. I would check the schedule real close, make sure that that's reasonable.
Yeah,
Because you're not gonna satisfy that schedule doing monthly meetings. You're gonna have to be a TRC, an advisor, or a selection committee put together, and you're gonna need to meet much more frequently than monthly.
Because
Just so you know that, to satisfy that schedule.
Right. The other thing I've got to check is to make sure these insurance limits are what we have to have. And I haven't looked at that yet, so
There was one comment about the CA, I think in the state of Florida, that's no longer a requirement, so we need to edit that. When I meet with you afterward, we can take a look at that, we just one statement you made there, I thought it was edited out already.
Okay.
The certificate of authorization, I don't think that's a requirement in the state now, for the business, but we can look at that.
Okay, are we all as a board okay with, Carol making sure that the insurance is correct? And Walt taking out that CA if it's not applicable?
What was that you're doing? What were you talking about?
It's on the first page, it's called Certificate of Authorization, CA.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. And then I think, Walt, you can weigh in on this, when you look at the schedule, you know, the ninth, you're not gonna have that. We're not gonna hit the ninth, okay? So we probably need to extend that by a week, two? What's your thoughts?
Just depends when I play today to get it.
I mean, it's an estimate.
Okay, so,
If we get things to Clay today by Wednesday, they can publish by Thursday.
I'll try my best.
well.
So any
that
Wednesday.
Wednesday is the ninth.
Thursday is the day of publishing, so.
So why don't
So
we
any
move
Wednesday.
these dates to tentatively, just change it in the RFQ add a week to it, add 7 days to it. All the way down. We're gonna,
Is a week long enough, Collins?
Yes, should be this.
okay. And with those changes, we're not having anybody want to rescind their vote? Okay,
No.
so we've still got a motion and approval, and so we go forward with it. Okay, very good.
Have I missed something along the way where the CIP's gotten revised? Has that gotten done yet?
No, there was a comment, where am I? CIP is on this thing here. We have talked about, breaking out the CIP differently, because we separate, some of the stuff that's not, some of the stuff is in this major engineering package, and some of it's not, shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like the dredging.
The littles.
And some of the other stuff. So, we're trying to work that out now as, with the advisory group is, but also there, you know, as I mentioned once before, there's some things that weren't on the CIP, like the road elevation being consistent on the north dam. That's not even on there, you know, so we've got things that I think will probably come off of it, things that will be added to it, things that will change. But remember what I said about the maximum precipitation versus the half precipitation versus 100 years. You know, that when those decisions get made, that can have a huge effect on construction.
One of the things we probably need to consider with all the discussion about developing Lake Lark is, yes, those signs that are out there with the weight limit, that's the weight limit of the road, which is owned by the county. We need an engineer who can give us a weight limit on the dam itself. So we can go back to the county and say, this is how much weight our dam can handle. It's more or less than your road. You see what I'm saying?
So what you could do to that is add a statement in there in the scope that simply gives the board the latitude to assign other services, to the extent the selected firm has qualifications in, so kind of open it up, you know, in the document to assign pretty much anything, road work, looking at Lake Lark, you know, whatever it might be. Right?
But do you really have to do that though?
What's that?
I mean, if you hire a company A, and company A has the resources and you really like them and that sort of thing, which we gonna give it our best shot to find that kind of person that we really like and all that. But if they were really top notch and all that, then can you not just, as you determine you've got certain other projects, you could go back to them and say,
Legally, I think it's another question for the attorney. In most documents, you see a statement on there, and it's usually very brief. It says that you can assign other responsibilities, not specifically described in the scope of work, right? So it kind of gives you latitude to be flexible.
Yeah, as long as it's delegated to them.
Right. Yeah. So you can,
okay,
it's in the statement, you can write it out.
okay, you can do that for us. All right, where was I? We were talking about capital improvement plan. Again, some of the biggest things is whether it's gonna be half PMP or it's gonna be full PMP or whatever. We, you know, and then the priorities that, we already kinda know, generally speaking, what the referendum passed was. And we know, we've got a budget coming up in June, was it, Don? June, where we'll have to determine what that assessment is really gonna be, up to the $2,400. And then we'll have to look at our cash, just like you do your own financing with your home and home expenses. Then you'll have to figure out what are these projects gonna cost and which one's priority, and that sort of thing. The first one is getting the engineering. I don't know what that's gonna cost. Not sure. That may eat up.
Plus figuring out exactly how we're gonna finance all this.
Well, and then you got the grants to
Well, that's after
consider.
the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think it's before the
The
fact.
grants, and then this
That's
thing that I
right.
just mentioned to Janet a while ago, that 5-liter,
Yeah, that thing.
that thing, that may be something that's worth pursuing too.
Plus, Matt sent out some information too, that has
I'll
some-
address that in just a
Okay,
minute.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's the CIP part. The one thing I wanted to say, I mentioned a little bit about talking to Tracy Wood about, she hasn't sent us a letter yet, but she did give me access to some information on the EAP that had inundation study information. So I have that on my laptop. She gave it to me for like, I don't know, 12 days or something like that, so you could download it. I did that. She still is saying that their instructions to us are to not make copies of anything but the modified, not draft, but the modified, report. You know, there's one that's got more information that's not for distribution. That's the way it's identified in the book. It's not for distribution.
Just the redacted one.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused because I actually talked to her about a couple other things, and I was curious about that point. And she said it's our document, that we could do whatever we wanted with it when she spoke with me.
That's not what she said to me.
Better get that in writing.
It's a good point.
That's not what she said to me. She did say that there are some legal proceedings going on with it right now that affect that, about who should have access to it and that sort of thing. She said, but the instructions that she is working with and that she's been dealing with, and she might have investigated it further after you talked to her, I don't know, is that you could, she said, you can let people on your board look at it, but do not make copies and distribute it, and don't put it on your website.
Okay. But the board members could review it, is what you
Board
told me.
members can review
Okay.
it, but you're not, there's, the way they did it was there's 2 complete bound copies of the complete study that doesn't have the stuff taken out of it. And she said, don't make any more copies of that. You're actually supposed to put control copy numbers on it like you do on some other types of systems and stuff. But you wanted to look at it, then she said you can do that, but not to. And the other thing we've got to do though, is even on that, copy that's on our website, we've gotta update that, because Mark McMillan's name's still on there. You wanna talk about delegation, you have a volunteer to take, there's two positions, there's a top guy and an alternate. So I would certainly take volunteers on that for both those positions.
Okay, what do they do? The top guy.
He's the main contact with the county. You know, what's the guy's name that's the head of the county?
John Ward.
John something.
Ward.
FEMA?
John Ward.
John Ward. John Ward.
Emergency.
Yeah, that's the contact. So it's twofold. One is they contact somebody here. The other is if we got situations that happen, like dam starting to wash out, then we have, that person contacts John Ward. It's all procedurally written out in there.
Can we suggest who we think might work well in that job?
You're free to talk about anything you want to.
I think Matt would be a good candidate for that if he'd take it.
He said he would be glad to. He volunteered.
I mean, he's really involved in all of it, so it seems like a good one. I don't know about a second.
Tom, you said you would.
Yeah, I'd be glad to get my name on it. I see this as only 2 action items. Maybe I'm oversimplifying, but the first action item is we all need to be familiar with this emergency action plan.
That's exactly right too.
Second action is that we just need to update our names and phone numbers to the county office, correct?
That is correct too.
We're not the people that wrote that document.
No, and that was another question that if Carl was here, I would ask him. But the full-fledged document was sent to the district secretary, along with the one that had stuff limited. And that's not what Tracy sent me. So if we don't have access through the district secretary's email or through her system some way, then I'm gonna have to get back to Tracy and get that sent again. So I don't know, can you check on that?
Sure.
That would be good.
And I guess the third action.
I think Carl said that there was a lot of stuff that he originally didn't think we had access to that we did. So I don't know for sure, but I think that.
So you want to know if we have access to the district secretary having received those copies?
Yeah, but see, they only left it available for like
A few days.
10 days or 12 days or something like
So it
that.
may be gone.
No, but what they had to do was download it and stick it somewhere in their system.
Yeah, it hadn't been downloaded, I can tell you that.
Well, if I have to, then I'll get back with Tracy and tell her we need the
Then
both of
the
those.
third action point would be we need to control the unredacted document.
For right now, we
Or
do.
give it back to them, or whatever happens to it.
Yeah, for right now we do. And it was, Mark McMillan said that the reason for that was because it had people's names and phone numbers, contact information, and that wasn't supposed to get out. Let me tell you, there's a lot more involved than that. I'll just leave it at that. A lot more information than that.
I read through it and I was intrigued by the location description because they mentioned this village or whatever the heck it is. I've never even heard of it. I'd have to go figure out what it is. It's
So if you give me a copy of the unredacted, I can go through it, read it head to toe. And for updating the phone numbers, I highly recommend, just because I've had to do this with our EAPs, is go through and physically call every one of the numbers. It is shocking when I've gone through mine on a yearly basis, how many are discontinued or changed, or that person left and went to this role, or that was that person's cell phone, and it's surprising. So to go through and physically make sure those are still the correct contact numbers. And I can get all of those recommendations to the board next month if I get a copy of that in the next week or two.
To compare the two, really all you gotta do is scan through there and look for, not to be distributed. Those comments that would be in the bound book are not in the email that we all got originally. The one email we got originally just showed, I think it showed a lot less pages.
Nothing.
So, but we still haven't, Tom's right, we still haven't gone through, and that's a requirement in this EAP process too, is that you go through training and familiarization of that. So we've still got to do that, and I don't know, why don't you look at that from your perspective, and you've had a lot of involvement with things like that, you sent us some information.
Yep.
Why don't you look at that from your perspective and say, is that gonna require a special meeting?
Sure.
Just for that? It
Sure.
could be, probably will be, but if you think so, then just let us know.
Yeah. I can do that.
That'd be good. All right. Okay, I guess we're down to you, Matt. St. John Water Management District cost share program.
Yeah, so, I can't speak to a lot of the different funding sources out there, but St. John's Water Management District has their cost share funding program available right now. It's available on a yearly basis, so it's not something that'll be gone forever if we don't apply this time. The way that it works is it covers up to 25% of non-operation and maintenance construction costs. They give heavier weighting in their process for already permitted and ready to build projects. And I find that that idea of permitted and on the shelf and ready to build is common in other grants as well. So we may find that we get our engineering group and we get everything permitted and drafted, and then we shelve it for a period of time until we find funding for it. That's not uncommon in entities. So we may find that that's an option for us. And that in particular for the St. John's, the non-O&M, I was thinking we could do that for new spillways. That wouldn't necessarily, O&M would be things like the trees. I don't think they would refund us for the trees or replacing of the Fabriform. That's the erosion protection on the south shore of the North Lake. But new spillways, that's a new construction. And that would be a big capital project. So that covers that. The DEP update. So as I mentioned, I talked to Tracy Woods, and as Alton mentioned, we will be getting a new letter. We're basically, from her perspective, from the outside view, we haven't demonstrated that we've done a whole lot, and that we need to respond to her letter formally, demonstrating everything that we have done since receiving the last letter. Things like repairing the spillways, clearing the tow drains, evaluating the headwater bank erosion protection system on the North Lake, updating the EAPs, and maybe even disputing the rating of some of the dams, if we feel it's appropriate. Also, in other business that I was talking with her on St. John's side is she, as part of her dam safety role, collects inspections of high and medium hazard dams throughout the state of Florida. And she uses that to get reimbursement from funding from the federal government. So one of the things that I did for her and for the board is I walked around the dams, the north and south dams, and gave them a visual inspection. It's something I do for my job. I do for the levees all the time. And that's something that I think would be prudent for us to do on some basis, either annually or semi-annually. If we report that, we don't have to give any results of the report to her, but if we tell her that this dam was inspected by a qualified person, in this case I'm a professional engineer, on this date, she takes that information, says, okay, high hazard dam inspected, great, I qualify for money. Makes us look good, gives her kudos, gives us some credit. So with the board's approval, what I would like to do is I would like to start giving the dams a walkthrough inspection on a twice-a-year basis. And I come up with a list of deficiencies, and what this does is it allows us to track changes over time. Things like erosion or seepage. When you have a Jackson report that comes out and says, you've got all this seepage. Well, has it been there for 20 years and it hasn't changed? Or is it something that just showed up in the last 6 months and that's not a good thing? You don't know. You don't know unless you can see changes over time, and that's what an inspection documentation process entails. So what I can do is I can take, if the board approves it, I can come up with an idea of what a report would look like for you guys and get that to you, let's say at the next meeting.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that Matt create a document that will allow him to do walkthrough inspections twice a year with a report accordingly.
Second.
Comment?
Yeah, comments, motion
Also,
second.
walked the north dam, and the thing that jumped out at me is in concert with what you're gonna do. I mean, to me, we ought to take, planned, documented photos of key things up to the point of we drive a stake in the ground and stake number 7 says you take a picture here and it includes this telephone pole and that telephone pole. So that we have a repetitive, equal photos from year to year that augment the verbiage in the report. Is that typical or is that overkill?
Pretty similar. So we don't usually do that when you're walking a levee that's 20 miles long, you usually don't stake it. Just because stakes can be run over with a lawnmower, they can disappear, or some kid could. We do GPS it, and that's I've got a system that I prefer to use that will GPS locate it, and we could. I'm going to see if I can make it work the way the way it does for me at work. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, but we should be able to look at photos and review comments, and it would GPS locate a point. And he would say, okay, this is what it looks like. This is why it's not good. A photo would have measurements. The description would have measurements, and you could track that over time. Got a comment from or a question from them?
Is it legal for me to ask a question out of?
It is, if I let you, yes, go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I think it's great that you're willing to do that, but you might want to think through the liability of that a little bit. I think if you did it on behalf of the board, that's fantastic, but I would still engage the district's engineer who has insurance and carries the liability to do that as well. And maybe you verify what they're seeing or something like
Sure.
that. But I just don't want you to get in trouble, right? Because you're gonna have to sign and seal that. If it's a legitimate inspection report. Maybe you wanna do that, I'm not sure, but just a word of caution, right?
Sure. Appreciate that.
All right, no problem.
So you still want to do it?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, so are we gonna vote on this?
Yeah, we're gonna vote. Any more discussion? There have been a lot of comments, and there's a certain amount of things that are documented in different reports. That's what I was insinuating about this annual audit and that sort of thing. That I think what the auditor first came back with was you had somebody that has an engineering deal by their name that said this, and you haven't combated that yet. And we haven't, but when we go through this process of design and all of that, we certainly will address all those things. We have to. But I'm not an engineer, so I can go look at something and say, hey, that's not right. But then you got the guy that charges you $100,000 and generated a geotechnical report as a geotechnical expert, then, you know, I don't stack up against him for sure. But one of the issues in a lot of these reports, and Walt, these guys need to pay attention to this too, I'm sure they've seen it before, but one of the issues in a lot of these reports is an engineer will say this is a problem and he suspects or some comment like that, or it could be that this is what caused it, or something like that, with no basis, you know, other than an opinion. The opinion is that, yeah, it could be, but it could also not be, you know, and yet they put it in there like it's factual, and what we'll have to do is do more evaluation on that. We being somebody with plenty of expertise, will have to do more evaluation on it to combat what was said. I think Tracy, that's one of the things that Tracy's looked at is the information that she's got. Some of it's wrong, in my opinion. And I told her. And I told her about, like I just told you guys, I'm not a geotechnical expert, but I know where certain information came from, and it's not based on good engineering principles at all. Anyway, where are we at now? We voted, we discussed.
Second.
Yeah, and Mike Kelter used to do that all the time. So you had what you're talking about. You had a record of what things were like. I mean, that's certainly one of the things that we should tap back into is, and I don't know how we do it necessarily, but he was a district engineer for, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 years. He was the guy that was the district engineer when the South Dam expansion was done. So, you know, he's got a lot of hands-on experience. He did a lot of work that's not being done now. That's one of the things I want to talk about in a little bit was a proposal for expanding some of Tim Lee's work that I think we need to do. But anyway, that's all coming. So we vote.
We have to. We have a motion and a second. We need to.
All right. All in favor? Tom, you got something else? No? Aye? Any opposed? You opposed? No? Okay, the motion passed. Everybody voted. You know. So, put that down, that.
All right, next, foreign procurement program. So basically, the reason this is on the agenda is I looked at what the St. Johns River Water Management District uses for procurement. They use a couple of different things. The main one they use is a program called Demand Star. It's used for advertising work. Vendors use it to look for work. It's free for government entities. We can, with the board's approval, I'd like to set us up with an account, and we use that as one more tool in the tool bag. We can advertise in the Clay Today. We can advertise on Demand Star. The more we get our work out there, the more chance we have of getting qualified bidders on our products.
Do they charge you for it?
No, for a government entity, it's free. I don't know if they charge on the back end to the vendors, the prospective bidders, but that's not our problem.
So the name of it is Manstar?
Demand Star.
Demand. Need to make a motion to let you set up a Demand Star account for LAMSBD?
Well, if they wind up, just a question, if they wind up, I guess I could wait for you making a motion and second it, but if they wind up charging the contractor, then it's gonna come back on us in the form of their bid. Eh?
It's cheap.
Huh?
It's low cost.
Okay, so you would support that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
okay. That's
Sweet.
good.
Okay, so we got a motion. You need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right.
That's it for me.
Hey,
Thank you.
Cool.
we're gonna skip Carl, since he's not on here tonight. Tom Lee, you talked about the recorder and all that. Do you have anything else?
Well, I mentioned I walked the North Dam, I see, gotta do the speed, I'm not a licensed engineer, so I don't know what I'm looking at, but I see a lot of terracing that I see in my mind is caused by the way our contractor mows in the same place every time. And this raises my question of A, can he do something differently, or is he limited by his equipment? Or B, do we need to be finding, do we need to tell him what to do, and if he can't do it, we find another contractor?
So you're talking about from the tire ruts, the rutting?
Yeah.
Okay.
This- Again, so if I had photos of 5 years ago, we could say, yeah, that's good, bad, or ugly. I don't know if it's getting worse, but it looks.
We just renewed that guy's contract, not long ago. And, I don't even know who the guy is, never talked to him. The only guy that ever dealt with him was Mark McMillan, the chairman. And since we talked about delegation, and I don't even know who the guy is, who would like to handle that project? And meet with the guy? Tom will. That's great. So can you provide Tom with
The name of the contractor and
the name of the contractor, and then, and it could be that if, I'm not saying go kick him in the butt, but if he's doing all he can do with the equipment, nobody's ever talked to him, then first thing to do is talk to him, right?
It is Forest Groundworks Incorporated, and they have a new contract, which you signed October of 2021. And I don't have a phone number for this entity, but I'm sure we can get that. Can you Google it and get their?
I'll check.
All right, if you don't succeed, let me know and I'll find it.
And the other thing, I saw all this email chatter from Carl about Clay Electric, and we paid the bill and they turned the lights back on. Can't this just be put on auto pay? Do they have to write a check every month and get mailed?
I don't know, the end results, they got it set up now where it's an email deal, so it's it's not going to some post office box that nobody was checking.
And then the two lights on this dam here, the one light by his house, it keeps tripping on bad ballast. The other light's not even working, so.
Where are these
Do we
at?
have a particular person that's in charge of calling? Or should I do that as well?
What we tried to do was to get them to put
Volunteers.
the new light bulbs in and get rid of those old ones. And they said our light bulbs had to burn out before we could get that done.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
but that's
That
not.
won't replace usable, I talked to the guy personally.
Oh, you did?
Yep. Who came and turned them on or put them in. Yeah, so I told Carl that we're doing it, and he said, are they putting in LEDs? So I went out and asked him, he said, no, we don't replace usable bulbs.
But
If
they're
they
not-
burn out, then we will.
But if they're not working or they're flickering, it seems to me
Yeah,
like it's
we're
good
in
to
a
go.
circular logic here. We need
Yeah.
those.
I have a question. If
Well,
our,
let's finish this though, unless your type questions about this.
So
It is.
I'm volunteering to just call Clay Electric, or do we have somebody that is already doing it?
The only person doing it is Carl,
Yeah, and he
because he had
said,
to get it back on.
but he, think about that, he inherited a bunch of this
Yes, he
stuff.
did, because he was just willing to do it. He
Well-
doesn't want to do it all the time, he'd like to give it away.
Yeah, he's got enough details. He
Yeah.
doesn't need that.
well, my question is, if our mission is to maintain the dams, and the county has already said that the roads belong to them, why do we have the lights?
Summer property.
Are you sure that the county says the road
They
belongs
have
to them?
consistently said that they own the roads. So why are we supporting the lights when it seems like that should be a county job?
Well, there's no lights anywhere in this subdivision
No.
other than on the dam.
But why do we have lights on the dam? And I'm
So
completely not in favor of putting LEDs in, because that's just light
The
pollution.
poles are on the dam rather than on the road.
Just, you need the lights on the dam
You can
because it's too
simplify that
dark.
real easy,
Yes.
right of ways and so on and so forth.
Usually does depend on who owns the land that the lights are on. So I haven't gone out there to look at them, I don't know, I'm just hearing what you all are saying, but.
Well, they're on the light poles that are stuck in the dam itself. It's
Yeah,
not on the road.
Just on the
Yeah, if it's not on the
Still,
road,
there's
it doesn't
that
matter.
topic too. I mean,
Yeah.
are the poles a structural liability to the dam? I don't know.
Corps of Engineers has mixed opinions about that. They are right now forcing us to remove electrical poles from one set of dams, and another set of dams, they're the ones who put the poles in and they're fine with them. It's the joy of working with the Corps of Engineers.
The big problem.
But to answer your question, what it can do is it can create a short circuit for seepage, which could create a pathway for water to get through your dam. And when you get into a high flood scenario, it creates a weak point for a breach, theoretically. It's happened before, but
So to
will it
Janet's
happen here?
point, I guess, can we vote to remove the lights from the dams, or does that create a liability issue that somebody's gonna sue us?
There's no guardrail on it.
No.
Very much of that north lake.
I was gonna say,
I would not do that.
You gotta have lights for no guardrails, is that right?
I think we're opening ourselves up for,
I think
if they were there, now that they're not there, and you have a problem, somebody runs off in the lake or down into Black Creek, I don't think.
I think that's something we need to leave to the engineer. They'll know better than we do as far as the light posts and the dams and all of that.
I know this, when the lights were off, you couldn't see a thing. And there's no guard, and we have a very big dip to fall into, not to mention the lake on the other side. I'm sorry. I think that the lights are necessary. I don't care how we do it, but I think they're necessary, and if we need to check with somebody, let's do that. But I don't want to take the lights out of the dam. You can't see.
Well, it's definitely a liability issue from hearing how you're describing it. Removing the lights would just increase that. I mean, it's a liability issue without there being guardrails.
Yeah, and there is none, and when I say there's a huge drop-off, there is a huge drop-off.
It is
And
a
it's
big
into
drop-off.
houses. I mean, there's houses down there.
Well, I'll inquire as to what it would cost to switch them to LED, because the payback should be.
Oh, with LED
Noticeable.
though, you have a lot of light pollution, and you also have that point of intensity. If you look at those lights, they hurt your eyes. So I'm absolutely not in favor of LEDs.
I have LEDs
Well, I don't think it's
throughout
gonna
my
be us
house.
that's gonna make that decision, it's gonna be the light company.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
guy, the guy actually told me, when I asked him about replacing LEDs, he said, you don't want this, you have more lights than this, you need LED.
I have to wear my sunglasses at night because my neighbors have such strong LEDs.
I'm not saying that you don't.
Yeah.
And you said your policy is not to replace bulbs that are usable.
I'll bring back some information and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
Tom, you handle it.
So we're gonna give the lights to Tom?
Right. There is a,
One quick comment,
Yes.
$44 a month is what you're talking about. The electric bill is $44 a month for the lights.
If it's a liability, I'm okay with the lights. I was just wondering why, if the county has claimed the road, why we couldn't shift that responsibility over to
well,
them.
they click in, there's a lot of documents that I've read, I wound up not being able to sleep one night and wound up reading crap for 3.5 hours about the dams. And, I don't know how much of it is still pertains to today, but, the county clearly said in documents I read that they maintain the road, but they do not own the dams. They
That's
have
right.
nothing to do with the dams.
They own the top 6 inches is what I read. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I read.
Well,
And that's the roadway.
they are claiming consistently in the board meetings, that they own the roads, they own the roads, they own the roads. Hence, the tonnage requirement on that is for the road only. They've been very clear in their meetings, it's for the road only, it's not for the dam. The dam could have more or less tonnage that it's able to handle, but the roads, that's what the road can handle.
But at the same time, they did not want to put it on the south dam because the south dam, which is a road, has a different kind of construction for the spillway than the one that we have over there. So I think they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth.
Well, I talked to the district engineer after this all came up, and, the district engineer said that the DOT is the one that inspects the bridges, and the DOT was the one that set the load limit, based on the North Lake, the fact that that's considered a bridge structure, and the South Lake is not considered a bridge structure. So it had nothing to do with the road or the dam
Has to do with the
load
bridge.
bearing capacity.
Yeah. So is Tom gonna be responsible for the lights now?
Sounded like it.
You want the lights too?
Unless you wanna
Okay.
delegate to Jerry, Jerry's sitting there, like, we gotta get Jerry, so.
We got plans for him.
That's not good.
Never good.
Okay, so where are we at now? That was you, Tom, you got anything else?
Well, when I did my little hike, the other thing that I see, it looks like a pretty self-contained project. That I think it's time to replace or augment the sandbags on the lakeside of the North Dam. And can we get the advisory committee to put together a spec that we can go out for bid for that?
So let me speak to that for a second. That's what that's called is fabriform. It's concrete poured into a fabric that forms it over your embankment. It's a form of hard armoring. There are different ways that you can hard armor an embankment. You can use riprap. That's the preferred method of the Corps. The reason you'd prefer riprap over fabriform is that if you start to get a pocket underneath, an erosive pocket, you won't notice it until it's so catastrophic that it causes your fabriform to cave in. Whereas if you have something like riprap, you can see it actually settle over time. It helps you to detect it a little better, and it actually helps to fill it in as well. So, but there are other options you have. We can also throw in sheet piling. I mean, it depends on what the board wants to do, but it's not sandbags, and it's going to be a bit more expensive of a solution than that.
Yeah, I'm not offering a solution, I just see the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it looks like it's a self-contained, it's a well-definable problem. So we ought to be able to move quickly on that. To Alden's point that the Tracy Woods are looking for progress, and it's time to do something. So I'm just asking what's the best way to proceed?
Well, when we had the lake, the west valve broke and we dropped the lake down, there's some bad spots in there. If you take from the spillway back towards the boat ramp, there's some bad spots in there. We did put some dirt mixed with clay in some of the holes, but you know, I don't know. The solution is to figure out what the engineer says the solution is, or else you'll have to spend a bunch of
And
money.
this dovetails into the Lola wanting to redo the boat ramp, and they need another lower.
Yeah.
So,
If the lake, if we're gonna drain the lake down, then we need to look at that and we need to do some things. It's heaved, I know what you're talking about with how it fails and all that, yeah. And you can actually see sand that's washed under that's out in the lake now. Now what they did too though, Matt, is they put concrete bags for on top of a certain amount of that. And somebody in the old board in the past said the reason they did that was because they didn't get their elevation right on where they stopped the mat on the bank. But probably what happened was, you know, the boats got bigger and, you know, you got into the
More
weight with
yeah.
the water and all that stuff for surfing instead of skiing, and your wakes go further up.
Our ski-doos do a fair amount of damage too. The ski-doos do a fair amount of damage too.
Not on that particular part of it.
Oh, it's a different thing. I've never seen it, I don't know.
Yeah, the surfing deal is they actually load the boat up. I don't know how they do it, but they load the boat up with a bunch of extra water. They pump water into the thing so it'll settle the thing down, and it'll throw a weight this high, and then they can surf out there behind it.
Skateboard boats have tanks in them to fill up the water and make the wake bigger.
Yeah, and that's what you see. I've watched them from the dam and where the spots are not so good. You can watch those kind of boats go and turn and go back towards the south of the dam, and you watch it, the wake flow, and it goes that much further than where the concrete stuff stops. Okay.
So is this one of those things that'll get, in the CIP, get developed somehow as to when it's gonna be done?
I don't know that you know.
Cause I heard sheet piling from someplace.
Oh, sheet piling is the longer term solution, but I don't know what we may have some situations where when we look at it, we have to we have to do something on a temporary basis to get us to the point where you can do some sheet
So I
metal.
guess I'm saying, is this a priority? Is it a priority?
Well, it hadn't been before, so.
But is it now?
I don't see it failing quickly. It's, you don't have a lot of erosion going on at the surface. Everything is grassed over pretty well. There was one 10-foot section where you've got total failure of the fabriform. That was the worst of it. But along the whole embankment, I don't see a super urgency, and please correct me if you guys have a different opinion.
Well, if we did, we would have already done something about it, but I think we should at least come up with if we drop the lake down and now you can take a good upfront personal look at it, what would we do? We probably need to have an idea of what that would be. It's probably where it's buckled up, take a jackhammer and knock the darn thing down and then put some rocks or something in there.
Well, if you're gonna get jackhammer, just break it up and use it.
Yeah, but I think the hole's gonna be deeper, so you have to.
Yeah, you're gonna have to add some, but
Yeah.
Okay, so this is tabled for later.
Yeah,
That's pretty well the main project. The first step, first phase is putting in bulkhead material and the spillway in it.
yeah,
That's pretty well.
at least part of it, you can look at
As soon
it
as we
from.
can get it,
So what you're saying is it's rising to the top pretty quick anyway.
I think it's been at the top, the spillway and the bulkhead material on the north end.
Yeah, the spillway, the bulkhead stuff, I know for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty high on the list.
Okay.
Okay? Larry? Comments?
I'm fine.
Jerry? You fine? Okay. Anything else, Carol?
No, I don't think so, other than just making sure that you're in line with me working on this book of process and procedure. Because it's been sort of kicked around for a long time, but there's really no directive about it. And if I'm gonna do this work, it has to be something the board wants.
Well, what I can say is that we've dropped the ball on a number of things since the September 13th disappearance of all these people, and what it showed is a weakness, a big weakness that exists. So there's got to be, and you don't know the weakness is necessarily there until something happens. Like, hey, nobody was checking the mailbox, so now we got the lights turned off. Well, there ought to be some way of having that known, those kind of things known and documented, and having people assigned, not just Mark McMillan, to do that stuff. I'm not Mark. I'm not going to do everything. Can't do everything.
Okay, so is the answer to my question, yes, you are in favor,
I
and
am.
should we make a motion that we're going to have this process and procedure?
I thought we made a motion on that back in like August.
It
August,
never
October,
went anywhere,
somewhere.
and no one was ever assigned to it.
Oh,
Okay,
I
and
know we had talked.
you're taking it on, so we make a motion that you take it on. Second? Your
Second.
All right, all opposed? None? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
try to trick us with that. Trying to trick us with that.
I just messed up.
He's just keeping us away.
See, we're waiting.
So, okay,
That was just a plain old mess up, man. Okay,
that's all the old business I have.
all right, Janet?
All right, dam grants. FEMA flood mitigation grant, somebody had mentioned that to me. The purpose of the community flood mitigation grant project is to lessen the frequency of severity of flooding to, and here's the words, that's kind of block this one, National Flood Insurance Program insured structures. Therefore, we are not eligible because we are not a national flood insured structure. The FEMA High Hazard Grant, which we would probably very well qualify, has a cost share requirement of not less than 35%. So we have to get our funding and our budgets together and have our cost share at the ready.
What's the name of that
So FEMA High Hazard Grant.
High hazard grant, okay.
Have we participated in that before?
No. Actually, the state of Florida has never done that grant before. So if we get that, we'll be the first. That's all I have for the good of the order.
Okay, one other thing, and I think this ties in with Tracy Woods to a certain extent. It ties in with some of the deficiencies we've got. Tracy was happy. The one thing we've done that has made her and Kenny Dewey happy is we've repaired the valves. Okay. The other thing that so we've got Tim doing the monthly inspection, lubrication, open, close, minor adjustments on valves. He also does the opening and closing anytime that is needed. But what we're not doing, and what is, John Mahoney brought it up when he gave his speech in September the 13th, and I don't think he had ever said it. If he hadn't said it the way he did then, but it certainly created some concern with the South Dam and the piezometer readings, and the tow drains. So the advisory board and Tim Lee looked at that, and we've done some cleanup work and things like that since then. But that needs to be done. The piezometers need to be read on a regular basis, and plotted. And the tow drains need to be cleaned out on a regular basis. Tim, we got him to clean out a bunch of dirt that had filled in there. So he gave us a proposal to add to his monthly thing to include clean out the 3 tow drains on the South Dam, to install locks, and there were supposed to be locks on these piezometers. All of them. There's to take the readings on the 5 piezometers on Lake Asbury Dam, the 6 piezometers on South Lake Asbury Dam, and the 6 piezometers on Lake Ryan. Install locks and repair the broken piezometer caps. Clean out the 3 tow drains on the South Lake Asbury Dam. Also clean foliage and debris from the spillway entrance to the South Lake Asbury Dam. That area right there is always messed up, so it'd keep that clean on a regular basis. I think that's the additions.
Lake Ryan.
Yeah.
Lake Ryan, oh yeah, keep
Keep the area cleaned out, right,
Yeah.
get a boat in and out.
He's gotta get a boat in and out there, and, so that one area where we have to put a boat in and out, keep that clean, that's got,
We need to add this, we need to add all that to the contract that we got.
well, that's what I'm saying, and here's a proposal to do that. The fee is, $4,500 per month.
45 a month.
$4,500 a month,
Now, is that,
including the valves and all that stuff that
Yeah.
is already.
I thought you were talking about the clean,
No, this is
that
taking,
back on Lake Ryan. I thought that's what you meant,
no, that's,
I know, I like the figures that I saw on that quote.
okay, should we just rewrite that contract, because that really changes it up quite a bit?
Yes.
I think rewrite it.
well, first gotta decide we're gonna do it.
I know, if we
so-
decide we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
I don't
we
wanna go amending that other one.
Yeah.
Now, also do a monthly report and do some charts and graphs on those piezometer readings so we can tell if we're having any issues at different times of the year, different seasons, rainy season when it's coming in and we get a lot of high water. If that makes a difference on piezometer readings, also you'll be able to tell that and have those charts at your access if the state needs some information.
And Mike Kelter used to do that when he was.
Yes, he did.
District, and Tocoi was supposed to do it, they didn't do it.
Okay, so, Tom, when that contract was I put it together, but with Wayne, but it got signed and then it never got back to me. I think you have a contract folder.
The contract book that I had was given back to Carl. I may have a PDF of that contract.
That's okay, if Carl has it, I can get it from Carl, but we need to get that to you, so you've got a starting point with all of this if we decide to do it.
Yeah, just so I understand what's going on, you already have an existing contract with this company?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Lee's valve and pump repair. We had it, when we got into this, the state had jumped on us hard because we didn't have the ability to draw the lakes down because the valves didn't work. And the board at that time said we couldn't do anything about it, basically. And then Tim said, I can fix them, so he's fixed them all, because they've all broke since then.
Right.
So, and these are additional services?
These are additional services from the same company.
But more expanded.
Yeah,
So that's why I don't want to do that under contract. Let's make a motion so we can get on with this.
to do
That.
the new contract, basically. Yeah, all right.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we amend the existing contract to align with the proposal given.
Okay.
Rewrite.
You don't want to amend it?
It-
So we're going to cancel the current contract?
Cancel and rewrite.
Okay,
Because it really changes a lot.
okay.
Okay?
Well, then I'll amend my motion.
I'm sure you
I was just trying to save you money.
do.
All right, so I'm amending my motion that we negate the current contract and initiate a new contract based on this proposal.
Second.
Okay, second,
Second.
any more discussion?
Should we put this out to bid?
The problem, I thought about it.
I don't know
No, that's a
nothing
good,
about it.
that's a good question, and the problem I would have with that is, nobody else was able to fix the valves.
That's right.
I'm not talking about the valves.
Well, the valves is part of it, it's all,
So it's going from 15 to 4,500.
yep, yeah. But this particular valve situation is gonna change with our new systems, but you still gonna have to maintain it. You still gonna have to have somebody maintain it, or you're gonna wind up the same situation. So,
Each and every month.
Pardon me?
Each and every month.
Each and every month, yes.
you know, you could do that, but to me, I would not agree at all to have anybody other than Tim work on these valves and
Yeah, if we're gonna have to go through that, I would just go back to the original contract and add on. Because right now, we have a man and a company that we absolutely know and trust and understand that he knows and he's performed
right,
beautifully.
right.
So I wouldn't want to put it out to bid.
I'm just trying to be good stewards
I
of
know
money.
you are. I know you are. But the problem of it is our group has been bad stewards because they haven't done all this.
That's
And now we have a man who knows how to do it and is responsibly doing it consistently.
Okay, any more discussion?
With minimal oversight, and I can't emphasize that enough.
Right.
When you have a bad contractor that you constantly have to look over, it's not fun.
All right, so there's the discussion. We had a motion and a second, so let's vote.
You gotta vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Does it carry?
Okay, unanimous. Okay, that's good. I think that that's all that I had, or that our agenda had. Now, we still have comments from the audience.
Before we get to comments from the audience, do we need to approve Carl issuing a check for the Cobb and Gonzalez bill in the packet?
We haven't approved that yet, no.
Okay.
We need to,
What was the?
In the packet,
yeah.
the Cobb and Gonzalez bill for this month.
Oh, yeah, you guys exchanged emails back and forth.
Well, that wasn't Carl's email from today.
Okay, so we officially need to approve it. Oh,
It's
I mean, it's a contract, eh?
he's talking about the EJ invoice.
So we
The
bills are supposed to be submitted by Thursday before the meeting, in order to get paid at the meeting. The old attorney had a fixed monthly fee.
Yes.
So we could prepare that check ahead of time because we knew what it was going to be. Now we don't know what that bill is going to be, although it's been suggested that we just do $1,000 and then we just keep balancing it out. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about that deadline until today, actually, so I told Carl that it's okay if it's a month delay in payment if it doesn't meet that Thursday deadline.
Well, then-
So, like, it's fine if you all.
All right, then technically we need to approve it, or else you won't get it.
Yeah.
Motion to, you're making a motion. to-
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we give Carl authorization to issue a check to Cobb and Gonzalez for the amount of $510.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried unanimously. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, I have, there's one question that was asked, the person is not here. So
She left. That's, she gave it to me to give to you, she brought it up.
well, I guess she didn't want to hear the answer then.
I didn't read it.
All right.
I didn't read it.
The second one was, is she done? Donnie wrote it.
Mike, we talked about recording the meetings and putting it on YouTube. My only concern with that is everybody in here is aware of YouTube? Everybody's seen stuff on YouTube? There's always a spot on YouTube for comments.
Won't be on our videos.
That's my question.
Yep.
Because if there is, you're gonna get off-the-wall comments from everybody from here to California to Africa to Italy to Brazil. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We don't need that.
I'll make sure that I include that as part of our protocol that we can address next month. But yeah, there won't be any commenting on the
Okay, you
videos.
don't need that. You don't need that. One more thing that's not on that list, we talked about the concrete pad that's on the dam. I know when the lake was down, I looked at it, and there's a lot of void behind that pad, and that's from the boat lakes. But you can do a lot if well-placed, crush creek is strategically placed behind that to fill in these voids. That'd buy you a lot of time. And it's cheap.
You got a contact on who does that too?
Yes, I do.
You did some, he did some on, what really, he didn't have to do it, he cut some trees down.
It saves me.
Put some around the pipe on the west bow. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. All right. It is, golly, 9:12, the meeting is, I make a motion, we close the meeting.
Second.
Anybody opposed?
I got one more comment. Next time you have to face the clock.